Okay, Rabbi Isai. So the shiur is, I guess we could say, Lezecher Nishmas Queen Elizabeth. She's lying in state right now. Queen Elizabeth, has a pretty much gets a thumbs up from the Jewish community. That's my understanding. She was a friend of the Jewish people. It's true that she never came to Israel, but supposedly that was because she didn't want to rile up her Palestinian constituents. It is an excuse. It's not an excuse. But by and large, she gets a favorable opinion amongst from the Jews. And actually, her husband came to Israel, and her son, Prince now King Charles, came to Eretz Yisrael. If you know a little bit of history, actually, her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, was actually his mother, which is Prince Alice. She was a righteous Gentile, meaning Prince Philip was a Greece prince, and his mother actually became a nun at the end of the day. She hid a Jewish family during the war. We know that the Nazis occupied Greece, and she hid, and she actually endangered herself. Many times the Gestapo tried to infiltrate her house, and she hid the family. To be as it may, Prince Alice, the Schwieger of Queen Elizabeth, who happens to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. Like I said, she was very religious, and at the end, she wanted very much to be buried in Israel. I think it was like maybe 20 years after she died, they disinterred her and reburied her in Israel, and that's why Prince Philip, which is her son, and King Charles, which is her grandson, came to Israel to pay their respects. So again, she's buried here in Eretz Yisrael. And to her credit, and to Prince Philip's credit, if you know a little history, Prince Alice's family, most of them were Nazis, meaning all her siblings sided with the Nazis. It was a messed up family. She had mental issues. It was a very messed up family. So part of the family became sided with the Nazis, and also her children. Most of her children sided with the Nazis, but Prince Philip actually fought the Nazis. And so this is the situation with the royal family. Be the may, I just wanted to use this as a platform to talk about, can women hold a position of authority in communal organizations? Is that allowed? Right? Obviously, Queen Elizabeth is not Jewish, so it's not an issue about her. But can a woman be a queen? Can a woman be a queen? Can a woman be a president of a shul? Can a woman be a president of a charity organization, a communal charity organization? Let's get this clear. There's no question that a woman could be a CEO of the biggest company, of Apple, of IBM, a private company, public company. That doesn't make a difference. As long as it's a profit organization. Women are just as smart as men, and they could be the CEO of any private company. There's no question. Again, when I say private, it could be a publicly traded company too. It doesn't make a difference. The point is a profit. It's a for-profit company. But the question is, can a woman have a role in a communal type of position? Can she be the sister? Could she be president of a shul? Can she serve as a Chaver Knesset, a member of the Knesset? Any type of any type of communal organization leadership. This is the question. So the truth is, there's absolutely no Gemara about this. There is no Gemara at all that talks about whether a woman can have a position of authority. The only thing is, there is a Sifri. And the Sifri makes a drasha. The Sifri makes a drasha. Says, "Soim tosim alecha melech, asher yivcha Hashem lekecha bay." We know in Parashat Shoftim the mitzvah to appoint a king. And the Sifri, again, is not in any Gemara, no Yerushalmi, but the Sifri, which is the early Medrash, says, make the drasha melech v'loy malka, a king and not a queen. So he'll say, okay, there's no Gemara about this. Maybe not every Sifri is brought down has halacha. So it's like, maybe it's not true. Maybe the Sifri has this drasha, but is this something that's codified as law? So the truth is, the Rambam brings this down. The Rambam brings down, Ein mamidim isha b'malchus, shenema melech v'loy malka. We cannot appoint a woman to be a queen. Now, let's get this clear. Obviously, a woman could be married to a king. No question about that. Right? A king is allowed to have a wife who's called queen. We're talking about the regnant. We're talking about the one who has the power, the monarch, like Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth ran the show. She had the authority. But again, we're not dealing with whether a queen married to a king. We're talking about a queen who has the power, who has authority, who was considered the monarch. So the Rambam does bring down the free ein ma'midim isha b'malchus shenemer melech v'loy malka. Okay, he said okay. No. So a woman can't be a queen. You know, we'll worry about it when Mashiach comes. If a woman could be a queen or not. So they can't be a queen, but they can be, but every other position of authority, no problem. Yeah. The only problem is the Rambam continues and says, "V'chein kol mesimas shebi Yisrael ein maminim behem el ish." Rambam continues and says, any type of position of communal authority, a woman can't be appointed to any type of position of communal authority. So that already makes life a little bit complicated. The Rambam seems to be saying that a woman can have any position of communal authority. And the question is, where does the Rambam get this from? Again, there's not even a Gemara that says a woman can't be a queen. So the Rambam wants to say the woman can't be a queen is a Sifri. But how does the Rambam know to take this a step further and take the liberty and say that a woman can't have any position of authority? Before I continue, let me give you a disclaimer. This is, we're not disparaging women and their. On the contrary, it could be God had mercy on women and didn't want them to have a thankless job and deal with the abuse of being a community leader. This is not this is any type of philosophical question. This is a halachic shiur. The philosophy behind this, I have my understanding behind it. Again, I think it's more for the benefit of women, not because they're considered inferior, God forbid. But be it as it may, the Rambam brings down that the women cannot be queen and cannot have any position of authority. And like I said, even though there's a Sifri that mentions that a woman can't be a queen, but where in the world does the Rambam get this concept that they can't have any position of authority? So, it seems that the answer is because the Rambam before brings down another halacha. This is in Halacha Dalet, and there the Rambam brings down that also a ger. The halacha is a ger can't be a king. We have a drasha, mikerev achicha. A ger cannot be a king. And again, I will repeat, disclaimer. It's nothing to do because you don't like gerim. Gemara, the Torah says like 35 times you're supposed to love the ger. On the contrary, I think it's for the benefit. Because if anything goes wrong, they'll be blamed. They'll say, oh, you aren't loyal. It's because of your heritage. So God had mercy on the ger and said, ger, it's better for you not to have any communal leadership. At the end, people will knock you down for it. People disparage you for it. But it doesn't make a difference what the reasons are. I'm right, I'm wrong. This is what it is. A ger, it says here, cannot be a king. Right? And then the Rambam says, and not only can't the ger be a king, he can't have any position of communal authority. He can't be a general of the army. He can't even be the water custodian. He can't even be the water official. And he can't even be the scale checker. What's the water custodian? There was a town that had a river, and the water had to be allotted based on all different types of criteria. So there's someone called the water official. He would decide who would get the water, what days. So a ger can't have that. That's communal type of position. And also a scale checker. What's a scale checker? Someone who checks the scales in all the stores to make sure that they have its integrity. Meaning, someone who would check to make sure that the scales were honest. That was called a scale checker. That also, a ger cannot have that. That's also a position of communal authority. How do you know this? The Rambam says a drasha. It says soim tosim alecha melech mikar v'checha. So mikar v'checha means not a ger, but the tautology, the double lashon, the repetition of soim tosim, that tells you any type of position of authority, of communal authority. So here the Rambam brings down that a ger cannot only be a melech, he also cannot have a position of communal authority. Now this is a Gemara. This already is an open Gemara in a couple of places in Shas. In a couple of places in Shas, it talks by Agrippas, when he was a king. If you remember who Agrippas was, he was a king by Hordes, and he went after Hordes. He was Hordes' grandson, and the whole story there that he really wasn't supposed to be the king because he wasn't really. He was sort of like a ger. And there are Gemaras about not giving gerim position of authority unless their mother was a full-fledged, purebred Jew. So these are Gemaras. So again, it seems that the Rambam made some type of hekesh. He made some type of analogy. Rambam says, listen, the Gemara says a ger cannot be a king, and a ger cannot have a position of authority. There is no Gemara at all by women, nothing. But we do have a Sifri that says a woman can't be a queen. Again, queen means the one who has authority. So the Rambam he takes the liberty saying, well, probably the same dinim that are by a ger or by isha. So just like a ger can't be a king and can't have a position of authority, also a woman, even though there's no open drush like this, but the Rambam feels that probably we put them in one lump. That since we know a woman cannot be a queen, probably cannot be either have any position of authority. But I repeat, there is no Gemara at all about women, and there's definitely not even a medrash about women not having a position of authority. It's the Rambam's own taking his own understanding, or taking, I would say, liberties, or the way he sees it. The ger and isha are lumped together. Now, to bring this to the fore, if we actually look in the chinuch seems to argue on the Rambam. Why do we see this chinuch argues on the Rambam? Because the chinuch in mitzvah Taf Sadi Zayin brings down this din that a woman cannot be a queen. Brings down this din that a woman cannot be a queen. Right? When he's talking about the mitzvah of Minu Melech, he says openly there that a woman cannot be a queen. That's it. That's all he says. He doesn't say one word about a woman not having any other position of authority. He just brings the sifri the way we have it. And then when you go to the next mitzvah Taf Sadi Ches, he brings down that you cannot appoint a ger to be a king. And over there he says explicitly, just like you can't appoint a ger to be a king, you can't appoint him to any position of authority. And he brings the pasuk, Saim Tasim, the repetitive lashon, Saim Tasim, Mikerev Achicha, that you can't make him a king and any other position of communal authority. So let's compare. when the chinuch talks about the woman, he doesn't say one word that the woman cannot have a position of authority. Just as one thing, the woman cannot be a queen. That's all he says. When he gets to the ger, there he says that a ger not only can't be king, he also can have any position of authority. So clearly we're seeing here a machlokes between the chinuch and the Rambam. The chinuch, it seems to be more true to the sources, at least the sources that we have, learned that a woman could have any position of authority, just not a queen. And the Rambam, somehow or other, he learns that no, the woman and ger are exactly the same thing. They both can't be king and queen, and they both can't have any position of authority. But again, the chinuch clearly, it's black and white, makes this distinction. Okay, so machlokes the Rambam and the chinuch, can a woman have a position of authority or not? Now, so this leads us to the tshuva throw. There's a tshuva here from Rabbi Fine. And the question was this: there was a woman whose husband died. The husband was a Talmid Chacham, and he was a mashgiach. And sadly enough, they were destitute. After they lost the breadwinner of the house. And the question was, could the woman be a mashgiach? That was the question. The woman said she wanted to take over the job of her husband. It seems that her husband was a one-man show, meaning this was 60, 70 years ago, a long time ago. So it was the man was his own kashrus agency, basically, one-man show, and the woman wanted to take it over. That was the question that was presented to Moshe. First, Moshe goes through the issues of can we believe a woman, can we not believe a woman, can we trust her when it comes to kashrus, and unequivocally he says there's no question we could trust her. If you know a little bit of a background, the whole din of Eid HRM be through, and we learn from women. The whole source of the Torah that we believe one aid when it comes to issue of kashrus, we actually learn it from women because we trust women when it comes to the issue of family purity. So be it as it may, Ramay says there's no question she's 100% trustworthy and she can be a mashgiach. No question about that. Obviously, if she's not from, then obviously not. Oh, but Ramay says he has a different problem. What's the problem? He brings down this Rambam. The Rambam says a woman cannot have a position of authority, a communal position of authority. So you'll say, mashgiach, that's a position of authority? Moshe says that's what we see, it's open. Because it says you can't be the ger. We're equating now ger women. A ger can't be the water custodian or the water official. Nothing too prestigious about that. A ger cannot be the one who checks the scales for its integrity, which is basically like a mashgiach. And it says openly that's called a position of authority. Meaning, Moshe brings out that the position of authority in a communal authority has nothing to do with prestigious or prestige. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with if a person has the last word, meaning someone has authority or is the boss over someone else. Like, how does it work by a mashgiach, like the water custodian? He was the buck stopped by him. He decided, and that's what it was. Or the scale checker, the one who's the scale custodian. If he would walk into the store and say, your scales are not good, they would close down that shop. So that's called, you have a position of authority. And that's what a mashgiach is. Mashgiach walks into the restaurant and he just says that, no, something's wrong, they shut it down. So that's called having a position of eminence, having a position of primacy over someone else in the community. Again, it has nothing to do with prestige. If you know what's going on in the news, it just happened. They just found in New Jersey some Chinese store that was selling non-kosher food. But over there, it wasn't the mashgiach's fault. It was actually the owner, who wasn't Jewish, was acting duplicitous on bringing in non-kosher meat. Be it as it may, so says Moshe, this is the problem. The woman, Nebuch, is an almana and she needs parnasa. But being a mashgiach is a position of authority. And it's hard to believe it. But it makes sense based on what we see from this Rambam. No different than a water carrier, a water custodian, and a scale checker. So it's a problem. Oh, so says Rav Moshe, you're right. According to the Rambam, the woman cannot be a mashgiach. But says the Rambam, says Rav Moshe, he makes our cheshbon, but the chinuch clearly argues on the Rambam. The chinuch says a woman could only not be a queen. Anything else, the woman could have any other position. She could be any president of the shul, president of a Chaver Knesset maybe. She could be in the parliament, anything. Just not a queen. So according to the chinuch, there's absolutely no problem for the woman to be a mashgiach. But but the Rambam says not that way. Usually when you have machlekes, the Rambam and the chinuch, you're going to pass like the Rambam. He's considered the world champion, the Rambam. Oh, says the Rav Moshe, no. Amazing. Since over here it's a question of a parnasa, of a almana, and we can, yes, rely on the chinuch. We are allowed to rely on the chinuch in this extenuating circumstance because we need to make sure the woman has a parnasa and she, yes, could be a mashgiach. And we can pass like the chinuch, b'makim hefsim ruba, and certainly to help out the money. Meaning, Rav Moshe is saying, we don't really understand the Rambam. We don't understand the Rambam 100%. He belabors that point. We don't really know where the Rambam is coming from. There is no Gemara that a woman can't have a position of authority. There's not even a Gemara that a woman can't be a queen. That's a Sifri. Fine, that we have a Sifri. So it is true, says Rav Moshe, we're going to paskin like the Rambam 99% of the cases, but when it's a question of urgency, when it's a question of an emergency, like this case, we will pass like the chinuch in order to make sure that the woman gets her parnasa. Oh, I thought that was very nice. Rav Moshe says we're going to pass like the chinuch in order to make sure the almana gets her parnasa. But then Rav Moshe says, by the way, there's a very simple way to avoid this problem. A very simple way. You don't have to get involved. Let the woman be the mashgiach. Let her have the kashrus agency. Just make the rabbi of the town be the titular head of the kashrus agency. Just put a man to be as if he is the one who is responsible or the buck stops by him. So then we could look at it that the rabbi is the authority here. The woman who's actually doing everything and will get paid all the money is as if she's working for the rabbi. So she doesn't have the buck doesn't stop by her, the bottom line doesn't stop by her. So you could just set it up that even according to the Rambam, you could set up a situation that the woman should have a parnasa and you'll just have a titular head, a man to be the rabbi master. But again, the woman will get her parnasa, she's really the one running the show. But the bottom line is, if there's any bottom line issues, the man will be the one who makes the decision to close down the store or not to close down the store. This is what Rav Moshe says. Oh, now, what? Then, in Tshuva Memhei, there was some gentleman, Rav Meir Ismail, who took umbrage with Rav Moshe. He was very upset at Rav Moshe. He was like, how in the world could you advertise, or how could you publish this tshuva that, oh, really, the Rambam who says that a woman can't have a position of authority, I don't even know where the source is. Basically, you're giving more credence to the chinuch, and you're questioning the Rambam. How could you do that, says this Rav Meir? Because of you, now they're going to be Chaver Knessets, where the way you lashon it, they're going to be presidents. There will be women presidents in Medinas Yisrael. Again, this was written 70 years ago. Because of you, there are going to be women who are going to take positions in all different type of communal authoritative positions. Because of what you did, Rav Moshe. Because you basically questioned the Rambam. This is what Rav Moshe writes back to him. Rav Moshe says, wait a minute. He says, I don't know what you're talking about. Rav Moshe says, the people in the Knesset or in Eretz Yisrael, the government there, 99% of them we're going to talk about 70 years ago, they're not going to listen to what I say anyway. What is the difference? What is the difference? What is the difference if what I do right, what I don't right, Ramosha said, you see, because I wrote that I questioned the Rambam. Ramosha didn't say you don't pass like the Rambam. Ramosha said we do pass like the Rambam. Remember that. He just said in an emergency case, you don't have to pass like a Rambam. But says Ramosha, because you think that I wrote that I don't know the source of the Rambam, because of that, you think the people in the Knesset are now going to allow women to have positions of authority, be Chaver Knesset? He said, you know what you're talking about. The Knesset, they don't listen to anything. Even if it would say to open the Torah that you can't have women in position of authority, they wouldn't care less. What are you attacking me for? It doesn't make a difference what I wrote. And then he said, oh, and you're worried about the Frum people? The Frum people, meaning maybe now there's going to be a Frum shul that a woman become president? I wrote clearly, Frum people who want to listen to me will not take women to be presidents of shuls, because I wrote, we pass like the Rambam, just in very extenuating cases, just in emergency cases. So what are you attacking me for? And then he says, Ramosha says something fascinating here. He says, this is your big issue. Your big issue is that in the Knesset, there are going to be women. Or this is your big issue. There's a much bigger issue. The bigger issue is to have representatives of the community, or people who have communal authority, if they are Rishayim, or basically Kaifrim. That's a much bigger issue. Right? He brings here the Rambam brings down over here that all positions of authority, and even if there's a son of a king, even if a king inherited his kingship, if he doesn't have Yira, and if he doesn't have Yira Shemayim, right away he is usurped from his position. Right away. Any position of communal position has to be held by a righteous person. Okay, again, and even if a son inherits, it's only if he's a tzaddik, or at least has the minimal amount of Yira Shemayim, then he can retain his position. So Ramosha says, this is your issue? This is what you bother me about? That in the Knesset they're going to be a woman. That's small potatoes. It's a much bigger issue if a Knesset member or any member of any communal position is not religious, minimally religious, or something, some type of yira, right? And he proves it. You don't need to prove, but he says the Minchas Chinuch has a chakira. We said a queen. That everyone agrees. A woman can't be a queen. A woman can't have the monarchy. Cannot be the authority. But the Minchas Chinuch says, well, let's say the woman inheritance. Let's say like Elizabeth. Why was Elizabeth the queen? Because her father was king. Maybe the whole Isser, says the Minchas Chinuch, is only if the queen becomes queen on her own stead. I mean, you can't initially appoint a queen. But maybe if she inherits, okay. I mean, the Minchas Chinuch has its chakira. Can a woman be a queen if she inherits? But the Minchas Chinuch says black and white, green and yellow. If the king's son is not religious or doesn't have yira, for sure he can't be king. No question about it. I mean, I know history didn't work out that way, but that's what should be. That it doesn't make a difference. But the issue of being religious or having yira or having Yishamayim, that's a must. That doesn't make a difference whether you're initially appointed or you were inherited. If you don't have that, you for sure can't have any communal position. So what do you see? So says the Moshe. So what do you see? What's worse? Not being a communal leader that's not religious or that has no yira, or being a woman. Clearly, you see being not having yira is more problematic, because like we said, if you're not religious, if you don't have yira shemayim, you can't be a king no matter what. Inherited initially, but a woman, the Minchas Chinuch says, it could be if she inherits the position, it's okay. And then the Moshe is pashut. So says the Moshe, what are you going crazy about? Oh, in the Knesset there's gonna be a woman. This is your issue. There are much bigger problems. And then Ramesha says, and I'll tell you something else. If there's a choice between a woman being a Chaver Knesset, or a woman having a position of authority, or a man that's not religious, it's 1,000% you pick the woman that's religious. No question about it. If those are the two choices. Even the Rambam, that says a woman can't have a position of authority, he clearly would say that a woman who is religious should be picked over a man who is not religious, a man who doesn't have a Yirah Shamayim. No question about it, says Ramesha. So that's Ramesha saying, like, he was very ticked off. You'll see he writes very strong languages. He says, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your paper, you're wasting your ink. He was very ticked off that this guy was, this person, Reb Meir, was, because of you there's going to be women in the Knesset. He said that's the least of the problems that then Klal Yisrael had. The much bigger problem, the community leaders are not religious. And this is reminiscent, this really answers the question that I've always had. Because we know there were two queens in history. There was one queen was Atalia. Now, we don't really have to talk about her. She was a megalomaniac. She was in the first base of Mikdash. She was the seventh king or queen. Her husband was a king, and her son was king. And then after they died, she took over. So you say, how could she take over? Atalia, everyone holds, even the Chinuch says that a woman can't be a queen. Yeah, but she was a nutcase. If you know the history, she killed her own family. She killed out her own grandchildren. Jewish grandmothers are not supposed to do that. They're not supposed to kill their grandchildren. She did that because she wanted to solidify, she wanted to make sure that she would be the queen. So we don't have any questions about such a woman. If you also know the history, who this Atalia was, you wouldn't be having any questions, because her mother was Isabel, right? Isabel, right? Achav's wife, who was a Gyaris, basically. Anyway, we're not going to put that Atalia. She was, like I said, she was a murderer, and obviously she didn't keep halacha. Oh, but there was another queen. Who was the other queen? Shamsina Malka. Shamsina Malka, if you know, is the second base on Mikdash, and she was a queen from the Maccabees. If you know the history, the second base on Mikdash, after like 100 years, 150 years, the Maccabees took over, and they basically reigned for like another 150 years until Hortus came. So one of those kings was a queen, Shamsina Malka. And she gets a thumbs up. The Medrash and the Gemara says many nice things about Shamsina Malka. It says that in her reign, R-E-I-N, it rained, R-A-I-N, it rained every Friday night, and there was plenty of produce, and the Chum clearly liked Shamsina Malka. I was always wondering, how could it be a queen? But the answer is simple. We know a little bit of history. What was going on there? Her husband was a guy named Yanai. Now, Yanai does not get a thumbs up. Yanai, if you remember the story in the Gemara, he was a king. Again, he was officially a Kohen, but he wanted to be a Kohen Gadol. But there's a question about his lineage, and the rabbis told him, Yanai, you got enough. You're a king already. You don't need more than that. And he basically got upset and he killed all the rabbis. So, and then who was his brother-in-law? Shimon Shetach, very good. He was the last rabbi. These are famous Gemaras. Be it as it may, Yanai was a terrible king, and he supported the Sadukim. If you know anything about the history, in the second Midrash there was two major groups: the Charedim, or the Pharisai, the Perushim, and the Sadukim, Pharisees, and there's always a tug of war, and Yanai basically killed all the Pharisees and sided with the Sadukim, and it was just total mayhem and chaos, and it was terrible. But Shamsina Malka, for whatever reasons, it could be at the end of his life, Yanai Melch did a little tshuva. Machlokes is what happened exactly. But be it as it may, Shamsina Malka did side with the Perushim. She was a great, great friend of the Prussian, meaning she gave them over the Beit HaMikdash again. The Beit HaMikdash was again in the control. For many years, the Beit HaMikdash was in control of the Sadukim. And she supported Talmidei Chachamim. And her sons already, they were equivocating. So it must be, it's exactly what Moshe said, that the Chachamim saw that even though Shamsina Malka was a queen, and it's usher, but she was the best of choices. She was the best of choices. It was a question of having a man who would probably side with the Stukim, and a man who would not be good to the Charedim. And the question was to have a woman who was Shamsina Malka, who clearly was in favor of the Prussian, of the Charedim. So therefore, I'm seeing here what Ramosha says, I see it echoing from history, that Shamsina Malka, even though she was a queen, was given a thumbs up by Chazal. And my understanding is, even though she was a woman, and we're not supposed to have a woman to be a queen, but under certain circumstances where it's the best choice, it's better to have a woman from than to have a man that is non-religious. So be it as it may. So Ramosha again says, leave me alone. It's okay that I wrote that we could paskin like the chinuch when it's a case of an emergency. But then Ramosha said, by the way, once you riled me up, I want you to know, I don't only think that the chinuch argues on the Rambam. I actually think that the Tosfos also argues on the Rambam. Why? Because Tosfos asked the question. We know there was Devorah, right? Devorah the Shofetet. So the doctor already asked over here, what about Devorah the Shofetet? So already Tosfos asked the question. But here we have to make a distinction. Tosfos' question is, how could Devorah be a dayan? Until now, we were not talking about whether a woman could be a dayan. We were talking about whether a woman could have a position of authority. And we said there's no Gemara about that. There is no Gemara about that. But to be a dayan, to be a judge, is that already the arguments? Maybe not explicitly, but pretty open. Meaning, what a woman can't be a dayan has nothing to do with authority. Nothing to do with authority. A woman can't be an Adam either. Be Adam has nothing to do with authority. A woman can't be a dayan, even a one-time dayan, which has nothing to do with authority. Right? Authority means a communal leader over a period of time. But that there is a special law, for whatever reason, a woman cannot be a dayan. So a distinction. Even the chinuch that says a woman can have any position except for a queen, he does agree that everyone would agree that a woman can't be a dayan. That's a separate issue. Now, the Tosfos is asking, how could Devorah be a dayan? So what does Tosfos answer? So he says, you know what? Kablu aleim. What does that mean? That the Klal Yisrael accepted her. So you ask, how does it help? When do Klal Yisrael accepted her to be a judge? We said a woman can't be a judge. No. When it comes to money issues, you could accept anyone you want to be a judge, except for goyim. Right? You have, if the two litigants decide they want their father to be a judge, they want their brother to be a judge, you say, oh no, relatives are not allowed to be judges. Yeah, but if the two litigants agree upon it, they could burn their money. They can do whatever they want with their money. So whenever it comes to any money issues, if the two litigants say they want a woman to be judge, that's no problem. This that a woman can't be a judge is if she's forcing one litigant to come to court, right? To superimpose her verdict or her judgment, that a woman can't do. A woman can't be like on a Sanhedrin, or a woman can't be for dinei nefashos, because that has nothing to do with you're not able to accept on yourself those issues. But a woman who's accepted by the two litigants to be dying for a moment, no problem. So what did I say? How is Devorah a judge? The whole Klal Yisrael accepted her. They all Klal Yisrael had a vote. Yeah, we want Devorah to be a judge. So no problem. So that's called Drom Sheba Mammon and Drom Sheba Mammon Tanai Kaim. When it comes to money issues, as long as everyone agrees, there's not a problem at all. So Frekter Moshe, wait 1 minute. Tosfos, you've only answered one problem. You've answered the problem, how could she be a dayan? And you said because Klal Yisrael accepted her to be a dayan. But what about the issue of her having authority? They didn't accept her to be a dayan one day. They gave her to be the head of the whole entire judicial system, at least the whole entire monetary judicial system. She was the head of it all. So that's a position of authority. It's not a one-time gig. So what about that issue? That's what Moshe is bothered by. Says the Moshe, what do you see from there? Tais not bothered by that. Why is Tais not bothered by that? It must be Tais sounds like the chinuch. Tais says no question. There's no question. A woman could have any position of authority, just like the chinuch. The only thing that a woman can't be is a queen and a judge. The judge, we got out of the problem. We said kablu aleim. All Klal Yisrael accepted upon themselves. And that's it. Queen. She was a queen. She didn't have the power to kill. That's not the power that Devorah had. So that's no problem. So says the Tosfos, says the Ramosha. Not only do I think that the Chinuch argues on the Rambam, I think that Tosfos argues on the Rambam. And then he goes through a whole slew of Rishonim. He thinks all the Rishonim argue on the Rambam, based on this issue of Devorah. That no one seems to be too bothered how Devorah could have a position of authority. They only seem to be bothered by this other issue. How could she be a dayan? So basically what we have is like this. According to Moshe, most Rishonim hold a woman can have any position of authority. But bottom line is, says Moshe, we do have to be wary, we do have to be choishes, we do have to keep the Rambam, and the Rambam says a woman cannot have any position of authority, but says Moshe, depending on the circumstances, we will be makel, like we saw by the widow, we said she could have a position of authority, and we could rely on the position of the other Rishonim. But comes in the famous Mishpatei Uziel. Mishpatei Uziel was a Rav Rashi, Meir Uziel, in the beginning, by Kal Medina, in the beginning of the inception of the Yisrael. And he also wanted to know, he's also dealing with this issue. He wants to know, could women have a position of authority? Right? And he goes to the same Tosfos, but he has a different conclusion. He says the same question like Moshe. Wait a minute. How was Devorah a dayan? Oh, Moshe said no problem. The Tosfos said no problem. They all voted her in. So therefore, like we said, if you can make anyone a judge except for goyim, right? You can't go. Even if the two litigants want to go to goyim, you can't do. That's our case. Fine. But then the Mishnah Deal has the same question of Moshe. Yeah, but she had a position of authority. So how does that work? Says the Mishpatei Zeal, his conclusion is not like a Moshe. Moshe's conclusion is it must be no problem. It must be like the chinuch. Only problem is the queen. Mishpatei Zeal is not going there. Mishpatei Zeal is saying no, it is a problem. A woman can't have any position of authority, like the Rambam. What do you do with Tosfos? It must be since she was democratically elected. There's no problem of having authority if you were democratically elected. Unbelievable. Meaning, the Mishpatei Zeal says, this din that a woman can't have a position of authority or be a queen, that's only if it's superimposed, like Sanhedrin. The good old days, who decided who was the queen? The Sanhedrin. And who decided who would have position of authority? The Sanhedrin. Who picked the Sanhedrin? I don't know. The smartest rabbi was the Sanhedrin. I don't know exactly who got it, but it wasn't democratic. Right? So says the Mishpatei Uziel, amazing chiddush, that just like you could vote in a dayan, and there's no problem in the issue of dayanis, he holds there's no issue of srora. It's called srora. There's no issue of srora of having authority if you are democratically voted. You're not called a authoritarian, right? Now, Moshe, when he's talking about this, he emphatically says just the opposite. When he's talking this, he says, and even though she was elected, well, there's no bigger authority than that. Moshe knows in the back of his mind that maybe someone's going to say this. That maybe if you're elected, it's not called you have a position of authority. But Moshe, when he's writing there, he says the opposite. He says, if you're elected, that means the whole Klal Yisrael picked you. That is a major league authority. But Mishpatei Uziel says just the opposite. He says that from Tosfos it comes out that if you're elected, and since Devorah was elected, meaning, according to Mishpatei Uziel, question, how was Devorah allowed to have position of authority? The Rambam says you can't. Answer, she was elected. Democratically picked, no problem. So Mishpat Zil comes out, halacha l'maisa. You could have a lady who's a Chaver Knesset. You could have a lady who's a Rosh Mimshala. You could have a lady who's a president. The whole question basically is moot. The whole question doesn't come up anymore. Because the only time a lady can't have a position is only if it's superimposed by a Sanhedrin, which really doesn't exist nowadays anymore. So a major machloikis between Reb Moshe and the Mishpatei Uzil. Oh, now the truth is, I have a little bit of a problem with the Mishpatei because the Gemara does say a ger can't be a water custodian and the ger can't be a scale official. So how are you picked as a water custodian? How are you picked as a water custodian? They weren't elected? I mean, didn't elected officials pick them? According to the Mishpat Zil, it's only if they directly elected, but let's say an elected body picks someone to have a position of authority. That's also not called democratically? So I don't know exactly. It could be Mishpat Zil said, no. The case of the water meter, and the water custodian, and the case of the scale official, the case was there was some type of city council that somehow or other had control, not democratically, and they somehow or other picked some guy, some ger, to be a water custodian, and yeah, but in economy, if it would have been done democratically, it wouldn't have been a problem. That's what the Mishpat Zil is going to have to learn. So that's what he's going to have to come up with. So, how we were holding?
46.
Oh, so I just want to end off with in the recent news, there was a judge, a celebrated Hasidic woman, Judge Ruchi Freyer was the name, celebrated to become to be a judge. Show that Haredi women also are able to accomplish things. So I'm not getting involved in right, wrong. I just had halachic issues. I'm sure she had a heter. I'm no doubt she had a heter. That's not my question. I just don't know exactly what it was. I mean, the problems are, A, how could she be a judge? We just learned here that a woman's not allowed to be a dayan. B, position of authority. She was given a permanent position. So you have the issue of sror, you have the issue of dayanis, and then you have the issue of arkayas. From Jews is never allowed to go to, not never, is basically not allowed to go to a non-religious court. She's not going, she's presiding over a non-religious court. So these are my IBC problems. I have answers for them. I'm sure she had a heter. I just want to bring it up. Based on our sheer here, we have to think about all these things. How could a frum woman be a judge in the New York court system? Part of the answer may be because she was elected. So we said, according to Mishpatei Uzil, elected, there's no problem. At least for money issues and at least for the authority issues. But I don't know exactly all the details. I just want to end off that it would seem, even if we want to be machmer like Ramesh, right? Again, Mishpatei Uzil says Ramesh is wrong. He says, he's a big Talmud Chacham, Mishpatei Uzil. He says, no. A woman could have any position of authority as long as she's elected, which is basically almost all the situations. Basically, again, we weren't too sure what would the Mishpatei Uzil say if it was indirectly elected, meaning an elected party picked a woman to have a position. I'm not exactly sure what he would say about that. But what about even Moshe L'chayra would agree that a woman could be a president of a sisterhood? Seemingly, Moshe would agree to that. Why? First of all, I'm not too sure if president of a sisterhood is called a position of authority, but I don't see why not. Seemingly, it would be a communal position, and it seems to be a position of authority. But it could be, since the chinuch says that there's no mitzvah on a woman to appoint a king. There is no mitzvah on a woman to appoint a king. The chinuch says. So since all the limitations of appointment are in the parsha of appointing a king, so it's talking to men. It's saying, men, you don't appoint a ger to have a position of authority. Men, you don't appoint a queen. Men, you don't appoint a position of authority give a position of authority for women, right? Because all of these restrictions are in the parsha of the appointment of a king. And who's the one who appoints the king? Men. So it could be women. All the restrictions don't apply to them. Since the women are not in this parsha, are not included in the mitzvah of appointing a king, they're not included in any of the restrictions either. So they could appoint another woman if they want. There's no problem. For them, the whole entire issue was never stated. So Rabbi Sai, thank you so much for listening. And again, so basically we have a major machlekes between the Ramosha and the Mishpatei Ezil. Can a woman, if a woman is elected, can she have a position of authority? Just to end off, the Mishpatei Ezil, in the good old days, when the Bekom Medina, when the Medina was being formed, there was a whole huge question whether even women should have a right to vote. A lot of literature about that. This whole shiur was about whether a woman can have a position of authority. But many Gedolim were even against, at one point, women voting. But time has I'm not going to go through it. Many tshuvas about it. One of the big concerns were shalom bayis issues. They felt that women shouldn't vote because it's going to bring politics into the house, and the husband's going to want one way, and the woman's going to want another way, and it's going to cause big shalom bayis problems. That was one of the main reasons. Because there's no clear halakhic reason why a woman can't vote. Clearly there's no clear halakhic reason behind it. Then they talk about, on the contrary, it's going to cause the woman to lie, because the husband's going to want to vote one way, and the woman's going to lie and say to her husband, yeah, I'll vote like you. But really, when she gets to the ballot, she'll vote what she really thinks, and she'll bring sheker into the house. They bring chanufa, it's called false flattery. She's trying to ingratiate herself with her husband, and she'll lie, and she'll say, yeah, I'm voting what you say, but at the end she'll do something else. All these different types of reasons are brought up. But at the end of the day, they say it's not a problem. No, she should lie. That's a good thing. It brings shalom bayis. She's allowed to lie. It's okay, and then she could vote any way she wants. It's very interesting to read the literature. At the end of the day, clearly, in our days, there's no question about it. That all this, I don't know about the Hasidic community, but clearly the literature community, all the women go out to vote, and they are urged to go out and vote. Okay, everybody, so we'll end up over here, and hopefully next week we'll talk about shofar.